Hi, this is Marcy Locke, and we're locking down the truth on your identity. Discovering how your identity can be the thing that's keeping you from the body and the life and the results that you want. So, do you know who you really are? Like, really, do you know who you are? Or are you more aware and clear of the person that you think you should be and the identity that you are known as and that you think you have to be validated and accepted? The person that you're known as, and that identity can be taken on from decisions and beliefs and things from the time we're young. So your identity is your definition of parameters. What defines you, who you are, how you act, how you behave, and it is actually coincides with your behaviors or your belief systems. Even if the belief systems are negative, such as, for instance, your identity you might take on in your family is she's the pretty one, or the smart one, or the wild one, the crazy one, or the successful one, or the failure, or the troublemaker, the mess up. It can be from your religion to your job title, the identity that you create for yourself to validate who you are. Now, if your identity is, there's a big difference between believing that you're a stupid person and that being your identity, and then proving those beliefs right would be, if I believe that I'm a stupid person from, some decisions I made from, being in second grade and someone making fun of me, and I want to prove that right, would be that I take actions such as maybe not studying for a test, or getting really anxious when there's going to be a test, or literally creating habits and behaviors that make me fail so that I can prove that to be right. There's a difference between the identity you believe that you are and just having a moment where you think that you did something stupid, or saying I'm a fat person and I might have 10 pounds to lose. But how this story or this belief in our identity shows up in our lives is what creates everything. So for instance, when I was 4 years old, I had an experience with my mom where she wanted to go out walking, and my experience was that she always was focused on her weight, was very worried about her weight, was upset about gaining back 5 pounds. So we went to go for a walk, and I wanted to hold her hand, and she said, I've got to do this to burn calories. Now, it wasn't a traumatic event. It wasn't something that was this horrible thing, but what it did was it created a belief in me. That's when I decided, if I don't have a perfect body, I'm not good enough and I'm not loved. And that stemmed from perfectionism. I took on the identity that I have to be perfect to be loved, and then that grew into all the belief systems through every area of my life, that I have to be perfect to be loved. So now this shows up. Let's say that I take on a perfectionist identity, which is so interesting to me. Is that if I am a perfectionist identity, I have a fear of failure. I do not want to fail because it scares me. I believe that I'm judged and I'm not good enough, or people aren't going to like me, and all these things. I want to show up in whatever way I am validated and I'm loved, and that's perfect. I have to appear to be perfect and wearing that mask of perfect. So if there's a fear of failure like no other. I will not allow myself to fail, because dang straight, I don't fail. But on the other hand, what's interesting is because we have this fear of failure, we also have a fear of success, because, and this is almost unconsciously, because we won't reach for ultimate success because there's that chance and there's that fear of failure. If I don't know that I can succeed at something, I won't take it on. I won't make that decision. I won't go for it, which holds you back, because it's really just your comfort zone and that fear of failure that keeps you in that place. So what's interesting is most perfectionists, they stay in the middle. They don't allow themselves to succeed ultimately to what they want, but they also will not take on anything that they might fail at. So they're right in that middle line of just what is validated as good enough. So how this can show up in your life. For instance, I had a girl in one of my hands-on groups that I remember pulling her aside and saying, I feel like you're not quite pushing yourself with your workouts. I feel like you're kind of holding back. And as we broke down some beliefs and looking at her internal fears of getting that body and what it had to look like, as perfectionists, or as in our society, we always think, well, it has to look a certain way. Well, I can't do that unless it looks this way. Unless it ends up this way, then it's successful. So we tend to have this mindset and consciousness without even looking at it, and really looking at if the thought's even true, if the belief's even true, what can or can't happen, and our other possibilities. So as we broke this down with her, she realized, yeah, when the thought is, if I pick up heavy weights, I'm gonna burn out faster, I'm gonna get tired faster, then I'm gonna look like I don't know what I'm doing, or I can't do it. and I'm going to look unsuccessful. So I stick to a lesser weight so that I look like I'm doing it right, I can control it, and I can handle it. But what does this really create for her? It creates not getting the same results. She's not pushing her body to what I teach, which is we just fatigue it and we create that change fast. She's kind of wasting her time and her effort and her energy just sticking to what looks successful. Same thing if like I've gone with groups to go do races and they're like, no, I can't because I can't run this far, I can't do this. Why do we think it has to look that way? Why do we think it has to look a certain way instead of, hey, it can be whatever we want? Run, then walk, run, then walk. It can take us all day, and we're just there to seize the experience. But these identities actually keep us from getting what we want when they're identities based on what we think it should look like. So for me, I took on the identity of a perfectionist. I took on the identity of a martyr. I took on the identity of a victim because my life was very hard. From the time I was little, there was sickness, there was disease, there was lack of money, there was body dysfunction from a family full of cancer and heart disease, and my dad had diabetes and, passed away when I was young, and all these things. I took on belief systems that the body is hard, that life is hard, and so even having experienced breast cancer and all these other things I went through, there was always had to be something going on because that was my victim story. Being a perfectionist was that I could handle it. My identity was, hey man, Marcy can handle hard things. If anybody can do it, Marcy can. And so every time there was something hard, it was my validation that I was good enough, but it was also my excuse and reason why it couldn't look this way, ultimate success, but because I handled hard things. So these tend to play, and this can be a breakdown process which we get into. So I want you to join me in the webinar and we can really dig into the identities that you've taken on, because from your belief system, this identity holds you back. I'll give you another example. A lady that did my program where her belief system had been perfectionist identity, and she had a great body in high school, then she had kids. Well, her belief, she wanted to be perfect, she couldn't lose the weight, she tried and tried and tried. So remember that table, we build up a belief, she decided, I just can't get the body back. So she had to, if we're afraid we're gonna fail, and it looks like failure, we have to create a validation for it. We have to create an excuse or a reason that makes it look like not failure. So her validation was, I'm just being a mom. That's important. And her saying that, oh, if you go to the gym and you take care of your body, you must be a selfish mom. I'm just focused on being a mom. So what happens when all of a sudden now, when she came and met with me, she had all this sickness, all these injuries, all this disease that kept showing up. And I said, interesting, this has been going on constantly for 3 years. What happened 3 years ago? Well, her youngest daughter went to school full time. So her story of, I'm just focused on being a mom, I can't, I'm not worried about losing weight, I'm just going to be a mom. That story that was the validation for her, she lost it. It was no longer her story. Her kids were at school all day. So what did she create as another reason she was not failing and she could still be in that perfectionist role? Was that she always had an injury show up, had gotten into a car accident, this happened, that, oh, I start to work out at the gym and then I hurt my ankle, and oh, I want to do this, but then this happened. So we create these stories to stay in the idea, or in the idea that we're not failing. So now, what I want to get to is that as we dig into the belief systems to find what's really behind the reasons you won't allow yourself to do the behaviors. When we dug into it, when she was in high school and had a great body, she had a couple experiences with some guys that made her feel fear, made her feel unsafe. The decision she made was, if I have a great body, I'm in danger. And it's scary that I could be attacked, something bad could happen. So deep down, see, she's got this belief she does not want the body. But here, consciously on the surface, she's been doing it over and over and over again. Every single program, every single diet, every single thing. Why does it not work for me? Something always happens, something always comes up, and then I'm back to square one again. This is why she hits her comfort zone and she goes back, because the deep belief was she didn't even want the body. But see, the identity as a perfectionist was she won't allow herself to succeed. And so she's got to have things going on to not be failing. So we get to get clear on the belief, the identity, and we get to go to where you want to be. Who do you want to be? And the real question is, how would you be living your life each day if you were living in the ideal life experience that you wanted? If you were living in the belief systems that served you, in the actions that assisted you and created the life. Every day they build to create the life that you want. So who do you really want to be? But we consciously have been so trained and conditioned from the time we were young in your decisions, your beliefs, your behaviors, your patterns, all these things to revert back to comfort, to be secure, to be an identity you're known as, that you are not even aware that you're doing these things versus creating the life that you really want. And that's the real reasons, the beliefs behind those behaviors is the real reasons why you're living in the life experience you have. It's why you have what you have. So join me in the webinar. We're going to dig into the different aspects and tools of looking at identities, how that shows up in your life, and how to break down these things so that you can really create that life experience you want to become who you want to be. You get to be the person, do the things to have those results in your life. What's been stopping you is what we get to discover and break through, and the rest of it can just come up easy. I'm Marcy Locke, reminding you that the power of choice is yours, so choose your best life.